This is how we ride. This is how we do.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and we are moved into a new facility, new area. This is kind of a temporary background. Who knows? We'll see how that actually works out. But we have moved to a new facility to do these shows, and it's been a minute since I was able to talk about any topics, really, and there are a few I want to address. You know, with the recent video I made around Jamie McMurray and his comments, you know, I do watch back and see what I say and try to analyze myself. I'm always the type, anyone who's kept up with me, that if I've said something that I truly think is wrong, yeah, I said it, I own it, but at the same time, how much do you mean it? And when I say how much do you mean it, I mean, how much is it coming from the heart, coming from the soul? You know, pieces like I did with that Jamie McMurray, even though some people see it this way or that way, I was just sitting there letting it rip. No filter on the mind, just going. Not even really anger, but more so compassion for this damn sport, especially the sprint car community, because I guess I'm just like Larson. No matter what I go and cover or try to do, I'm always going to be a sprint car guy. And something I realized in that video is here's what's a little bit more important than calling out some BS or some crap with a car or somebody's broadcast that wasn't, a 10 out of a 10. And, I pointed out a lot of faults in this racing world. And there's faults in everyone and everything. But I'll tell you what. Along with the video I made, there was another video. I shared it on all my socials, all Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere I could put it. Because this video was extremely good to describe this sprint car sport and what it is. And, we do have an issue in nepotism and monarchy. It's racing. It's money, monetarily based. So, friends and family can run this thing more so than talent and ability and skill. And obviously, it's a microcosm of what happens in the more higher upper echelon monetary series. I'm not going to say skill series. Monetarily based series, pay for play in NASCAR pretty much, and we have that to an extent. But that What is a Sprint Car video emphasized on how this dirt, even World of Outlaws sprint car thing, is the closest thing to a meritocracy that the racing world has. And I think that's why I kind of liked it. And I think that's also a point to reference when I get on here and just say whatever I think, no matter what it is. No matter who's offended, no matter who is not. A meritocracy is kind of, the closest thing to freedom that human beings can possess. That's why everybody wanted to come or halfway still wants to come here to America, is because you can technically be a free individual. The right to speech, the right to prosper, the right to flourish, the rights that we are given because our country fought and died for those rights. Now, the positive thing about that video was it made some valid points, how this is one of the cheapest forms of racing in the world, especially when you equate how much people are actually winning and making. And as much as I get caught up in this little world where people aren't making enough and racer pay and all this other stuff, it is true. We are very lucky to have this sport in its growing period of dirt track racing where you can somewhat work your way to the top. Now, obviously, like I said, I've talked against the nepotism and the monarchy, and that made me think about some of the recent things that I had said by watching this video. And one of the people who were upset with something that I recently said was Brent Marks. Now, Brent Marks was upset because I said him coming from 20th to 1st at Attica wasn't that big of a deal. It was expected. Now, in the same light, I brought up in that Jamie McMurray video, Class A drivers, Class B, C, D, and I do believe that Brent Marks is a Class A driver in a Class A car, because there's classes of cars out there as well, not just necessarily talent. Do still believe it is a valid point that a Brent Marks somebody on his level should go into an All-Star Circuit of Champions event that has some Class A drivers and car combos, some Class A drivers with Class B cars. And he should go in there and be Class A. Don't matter where you put him on the field. That guy is just next level ability and skill and talent with a next level ability vehicle. I believe when guys are faster at the end of a race, you know, and just that much quicker than everyone else, that it ain't necessarily their tires, like some other people are starting to speculate. You know, that's one of the reasons people are saying, well, McFadden definitely had something going on in that I-55 race. You know, the crew and the driver didn't just hit the setup. He had something going on in the tires. You know, see, so Brent, I'm not saying that about your tires. Some other people are now apparently speculating that's the case. But I just think really that's a Class A driver in a Class A car doing some Class A shit. Same thing with James McFadden. You know, yeah, they've been off, but they could have got it right once, right? Without it being something else. But apparently not. Apparently that's the new standard if you're doing something tricky on your rubber. But in the same light, I guess I should halfway apologize to the All-Stars. You know, some of you guys out there are Class A talents. You're just in Class B cars. And there are definitely some Class B drivers in some Class A cars on the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series. So it's somewhat evened out. But I do still also believe that when you go to that World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series, you're just on another level. That's just what I believe. And you can plot pretty much anyone in the top 6 or 7 on a regular basis from the World of Outlaws and put them in an all-star field, put them in any starting position, and they could do relatively the same. They're just that damn good. But it's hard to judge in this racing world. It's hard to give a complete analysis in this racing world. I mean, look at the PA racing scene. I mean, how strong is that? How strong really is it? You know, I mean, they got 305 drivers that could potentially be better than a bunch of the 410 racers, but they just don't have the funding. And look at that Zach Rhodes guy or whatever from, you know, PA. He went up there to Winchester and won that race, you know, and that's a badass racetrack, but there's a group, you know, that it's hard to get races at tracks, similar to the World of Outlaws in quarter miles in Indiana. Apparently there's only one that's allowed a race or something along those lines. So many great racetracks that would put on a good race. But there is a form of nepotism and monarchy that is not just controlling the cars on the track, but also controlling the series and events that are had as well. This is not just a fake falsity. This is realities that do exist. I mean, we could touch on the tri-state race. I mean, Brady Bacon doing what he did. You put these, you know, winged sprint cars onto short tracks, and you take that wing out of the equation when it comes to, you know, it's through corner performance. And you also get the cream rising to the top because, you know, that driver takes over that race car, and those Class A cars don't really matter as much. And those Class A drivers will rise and shine in those situations. But that don't necessarily help a Class A series, like the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series, always look Class A if you get them on these tracks where their Class A cars don't have an ability or an advantage. You know, even some people say the way the World of Outlaws line up their heat races and main events benefit those Class A cars. Because qualifying, if you don't qualify well, you're not going to perform well. And qualifying is usually on a heavy tacked up racetrack. And the car is going to perform more so than the driver will. You get a guy with Class B funding, and he's starting 7th, 6th in a heat race behind the names that we know run that series every week, and he's in trouble. It don't matter. The track's slicking off. There ain't no real inverts. There ain't nothing like that. The track's slicking off and letting that driver go and get those guys later in the night, it's very hard to do. So I just thought I should touch on that subject just a little bit. Maybe touch on the Larson subject just a little bit on some things I think I got wrong or got right. Obviously, you know, the position adjustable shock bullcrap or sensitive positions or whatever, like most of the Larson fans with their sensitive position, I still think there could be something there, but it's looking like there never was or never could be. So I guess I'm sorry to Kevin Rumley. I thought you were super smart and had you a damn spaceship on hand. And you obviously got one of the best damn race car drivers in the world to be able to do it. And, one of is the main word I like to use there. But Kyle Larson's been saying a lot of smart shit lately. Been really responding to these people who have came after him for his dirt racing and things along those lines. And one of the biggest things that I think people are slipping on, that they need to understand that Kyle Larson is saying correctly in this, is he's talking about the money he's making. You see, there's illusions out there. One in particular would be NASCAR is the NFL and dirt racing is grassroots. NASCAR's the house above. This is minor league, this dirt thing, no matter what it is. Mike McKinney was offended that I called UMP modifieds ARCA. Well, if you listen to the world or some of your buddies over there in UMP dirt car land, you're just grassroots. You're not even ARCA. You're like the YMCA. That's what World of Outlaws sprint car racing is. Flag football. Below ARCA. And that's one of the things that I think with Kyle Larson saying he's making money in the dirt racing is giving a little respect, because the one negatives to the ideology that NASCAR is Kyle Larson's job and dirt racing is something he loves to do for fun is turning the perspective of what this dirt deal is into boating or a hobby, something you do for fun. There's no professionalism. Denny Hamlin and them are trying to relate it to recreational country club basketball when it's not that. But that is a ideology that is out there and being accepted by people, especially the sheep that are listening to their screens for facts. Another great thing that the What is a Sprint Car video did was talk about the money that's being made. And I think y'all really need to recognize how important that point Kyle Larson is making to these NASCAR medias and people out there in general society that people just don't know we even exist to begin with most of the time. They don't even know who the favorite NASCAR. They don't even know who Kyle Larson is. He's the N-word guy. They might not even know his name. But when he's pushing this ideology of I'm making money out here, guys, I'm racing for a living. And when I got kicked out when I said the N-word, I actually did race for a living over here. I made money over here, and that type of ideology that he's pushing with I'm making money over here is a real good combative stance to the ideology that this is just flag football. And Kyle Larson's been saying a lot of things right recently. A lot of things right. Especially, really starters in a sprint car. Starters in a sprint car. And I'll tell you what, I know everybody's like, oh, well, sprint cars don't have starters. And yeah, there was, the flip at 34. That's non-typical. But, I personally believe there needs to be a new sprint car developed. And if you get a new sprint car developed, why not throw a starter off in that thing? The super sportsmen in PA are able to take off on their own. And their chassis geometry isn't far off from a sprint car. They're very similar. So there's a lot of things, Larson. Even the point where he's like, well, there's so many dirt races and, NASCAR, there's only 35 or whatever there is now. And in dirt, there's thousands of races every week to siphon from. That makes complete sense. Does it not? And for him to be able to get onto their platform and say this stuff is really, really impactful for the respect of this sport. And me and Larson have had these conversations, and he's heard me talk about respect for this sport for 5 years now, and talking about all the manipulative ways that media uses to use him to make this thing look like the boat situation, like the hobby, the flag football. He just does it for fun. It's just a little, it's recreational basketball like Denny Hamlin or snowboarding. It's not snowboarding. It's not. And there's people out there trying to make people believe that it's snowboarding. But Kyle Larson, with the things he's saying, recognizes that it's important for him to say that it's not. So yeah, he's still co-trickle. I still believe that there are other drivers just as good as Kyle Larson, but the things he's doing recently are making me want to be a Larsonite. I'm just saying, making me want to be a Larson. I may have to wear the Larsonite shirt in a whole nother way going forward if this is the way the man's going to be speaking out there. And then, of course, I guess the one recent thing I was a little too harsh on was XR and their broadcast of the spring thaw. And I believe that Barry over there with XR is trying to do some big things and trying to do some amazing things. And it's no secret that their main product is the broadcast. That's what's making that thing tick over there. They're trying to get the in-person audience, you know, and they did a great job of that at Volunteer. But the broadcast is the main thing. And I know a few people over there that are involved in that situation. And I do care about XR's success. And I care about their product as well. Not just from being behind it, but knowing what it represents. It is very true in my criticism. This is what the new people are going to see. This $100,000 race, new people are going to be tuning in to see the level, to see this ability of not just the drivers, but also the presentation. And when you see some of these other, you know, big events, the Knoxville Nationals or Kings Royals or Eldora Millions and stuff like this on the different other platforms, I mean, they're hit and mint. I mean, they are perfection. And when we see, and I hate to say it, on a consistent basis, not that level of a production from a place that is trying to be that, I want XR to be better. I feel like sometimes there are echo chambers of success. And maybe in some aspects there's success, but there's always getting better. And there's some stuff that needs to get better and has to get better. But XR is doing some innovative things in the racing world. Their impact on this racing world is felt even in the sprint car world. I mean, some of the pay and all this stuff that is happening on the sprint car world and all the bidding wars that happen on the late model side was somewhat spurred by XR. So the XR effect is felt throughout the racing world with what they attempted and are trying to do. And I think that's the only part that I can be a little, you know, apologetic for is their attempt. At least they're attempting. At least they're trying. Now, I never, you know, discredited that effort. I just think that effort needs to be on another level because I want this sport to be on another level. And it's very important that it does. Obviously, they're going to be bringing a $100,000 race to Kokomo, hoping to get fan support because last year they really didn't get fan support, in-person support, but the broadcast support hopefully will tick up just a little bit. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, just a lot of thinking. You know, I'm not necessarily, and anyone who's been watching this, not necessarily been sitting back trying to just get clicks on hot button topics. You know, I've never really been that. I have things that I'm passionate about. I have things that matter to me with this racing world a lot. Racing is one of those things that if you are there for it, it is there for you. It's very dependable. And that's definitely hard to find in life. And I just felt like there has been some things, you know, looking at what I'm attempting to do that I have said or done a little bit wrong. And maybe it's because of a lack of attention, you know, lack of attention, not lack of opinion, not the lack of effort or balls, but lack of attention to care about what I'm attempting to actually do. And I'm glad that we've had a few videos over the recent time here come out and show me a side of this sport that I've kind of forgot and need to get back to worrying about as well. I've always stood up for the little guys. And in a weird way, I've somewhat been blinded throughout the little miniature nepotisms and miniature monarchy style situations and miniature communistic situations in authoritarian miniature situations to kind of blind my perspective on how everyone in this dirt deal is the little guy. That doesn't mean that you just turn a blind eye to everything, but I think I have had one eye closed on the bigger picture of this scenario. It is true. Dirt racing is the closest thing to a meritocracy that this racing world's ever seen, and it does deserve to be cherished and appreciated. But that also means it deserves its attention and its, criticism from time to time to make sure, as that a meritocracy grows and grows and grows, that it doesn't become what our country has slowly become, and that is failing. So there is a level of fair criticism that the dirt world deserves, not to be worse, but to be better. So it's not like I'm just going to sit back and start being hunky-dory, but I am going to, look at this thing with a little bit better of perspective going forward, I think. A little bit nicer. Not all the way nice. I mean, I just have an opinion. I mean, some opinions I have that are strong, some people view nice, some people view negative. I'm sure NASCAR people didn't like me saying sprint car drivers are just as talented as NASCAR drivers, but I'm sure there's a whole community of dirt people who are glad I said that. So there really is no right or nice way of doing things. That's the sad, true part. It's a matter of everyone's perspective that is involved. But hopefully, the perspective that I am going to be supporting more going forward is from the dirt side, the little guy, the meritocracy of the racing world's perspective. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, like, comment below, share the video. Be sure to go look at that What is a Sprint Car video. I will put a link in the description, actually, because it is amazing. Once again, a more positive perspective to the dirt track racing world. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got to say, and we will catch you next time.
This is how we ride. This is how